Hi, mamas. My name is Hannah Day. I'm the founder of BirthPrep Yoga, if you don't know me yet. And I've got two moms here. They're having their second babies. They're doing the current series with me. And we were talking today about breastfeeding, and they're sharing such good gold nuggets. I want to share it with you. So, Holly, go ahead, say what you were saying before. So, Holly, maybe just your background too on how you have this info.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a nurse practitioner in Ontario who works in primary care. So I have a huge practice of a lot of young moms and babes. So it's a big part of my world every day. But we were just talking about how it's not always as easy as it seems when you first kind of go endeavoring down the road to breastfeeding. And what I always, something kind of as a nugget that I always pass on to my moms is just that it's not really that realistic to think about that the moment a baby comes out, they know exactly what to do and we know exactly what to do. It's a learning curve for sure. And it's not always simple and it's not always easy the way that it maybe is perceived when you read about it or when you see it in TV. It does take some perseverance and some learning, and eventually if you stick with it and can stick with it, and for your own mental health you can stick with it, works itself out.
And what did you say? You took six full weeks with your first
Like,
to get.
yeah, I would argue maybe even 6 or 7 to get fully like what I would call established, so feeling like I felt comfortable, she knew what to do. It was a good long 6 or 7 weeks. I had a another mom who is another nurse practitioner that I worked with who told me, think about it as a 6 week learning curve. And I think I always kept that in the back of my brain. But yeah, there were definitely some times where I was ready to tap out, and my partner knew I really wanted to continue to breastfeed. So he actually would latch her for me because I couldn't do it anymore because of the pain. And I think that if I didn't have that support at that time to say, okay, here, I'll help you out with it, it might not have gone as well. But yeah, just knowing that it's definitely a learning curve. It's not something that just you snap your fingers and figure out, and nor should it be. I mean, it's kind of not fair to ourselves to think of that as something
Yes,
we should automatically know how to do.
and you were saying you had a C-section, so your baby was she would go a lot. She was smaller. She'd latch. She'd go on, and then she would fall asleep. So
Yes,
that
and it was the heat of summer. So I remember I had a magic bag from the freezer, putting it on her back to kind of try to keep her awake because she was really quite lazy when she came out the first few days, and lost quite a bit of weight because she didn't have the drive. She didn't go through the typical sort of hormone fluctuations that another babe would because she was a planned section and I never labored. So she definitely took a lot of extra time in the beginning to figure it out.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anna, did you want to share anything? I know Holly, I hear your other one. I think I can hear her
She
using
just
your.
got up from quiet time.
Feel free to pop off if you need to, but I'll just mute you. And then Anna, did you want to share any tips? So you were saying your first had a tongue tie.
Yeah, I also wanted to say, so I had unmedicated vaginal delivery, and my daughter was also lazy at first. Or I guess maybe it was because of the tongue tie, but like she also fell asleep like because it was so hard for her, I think, and she wasn't getting anything because of the tongue tie. Um, so yeah, once it took me probably until 6 or 7 weeks to get like, oh, I understand how this works now because it got clipped at 5 weeks and then you have to do the stretches, which is like a whole thing. But yeah, my supply like didn't really like I would say stabilize and become like enough for her until after the tongue tie was lasered. So I guess my recommendation is like to go to a pediatric dentist to get the tongue tie assessed because doctors and nurses and midwives can't really tell you for sure. Um, when I checked her with those folks, they were like, oh, I think so. And then some people would be like, no, I don't think so. So it's best to just go get it checked by a dentist because they're actually experts in that and they'll be able to tell you for sure. And then the other thing is if you do find yourself having to pump, because not everyone does, I had to because she was sleeping for long hours. So in order for me to keep my milk supply up and like remove it every 3 hours, I had to figure out pumping and I was using like the wrong flange size and like my pump kept breaking and like all of this stuff. I actually learned a lot from Instagram, but that's why I think it's really key to like have a lactation consultant that you like, that you can work with, that can come to your house and show you how to latch the baby, can explain like um, which size flange you should be using, because like all of those things will affect the amount of milk that you're taking out.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you mentioned the flange size. I feel like none of us know about that. You're pumping with some random, I don't know, size that it came with. And I'm like, then there's some flange like sizes that even have like rubber on the outside. It was like a really nice suction. I know there's now the Haka. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Haka. You can like squeeze it and pop it on the other side, so it's actually you're collecting milk, because usually when you're breastfeeding you get the drop down and let down on both sides. So I found, I'm like, why pumping is just so uncomfortable. It's just the flange size. I switched that. Different story. And you
Dang,
don't
yeah.
even hear about that.
Well, typically, like the one they give you in, like, if you buy a Medela is 24, which is like most people are, that's not, their nipples are not that big. So, but you wouldn't know, right? Because it's the one that you get with the box. So you just kind of use it. But yeah, like Holly said, it's a learning curve. You get it, but you can't expect to know how to do something you've never done before, and the baby also doesn't know how to do it when they're so little. Um, they can't do it. So it's like both of you kind of get better at the same time, and then like by the end of it, like we were in Florida and I would be like breastfeeding and like eating over her head, right? Like it was like no problem. It's just at the beginning and you're so vulnerable and there's lots of hormones, so it sort of gets in your head.
I love those tips. Thank you so much. So if you are someone watching this and you're like, I really want to breastfeed my baby, give yourself full 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Don't give up on yourself. And even if it's longer and you really want to, reach out to a lactation consultant. In the Birth Prep Yoga on demand, I have one. You can click on it. She's an amazing lactation consultant. She's on Instagram. And she gives lots of tips. Like Anna said, you can find people and learn tips. And then if you have one in your community, or if you can do it online, whatever is your style, like if you want to, don't give up on yourself. It's hard. It's harder than you think. I thought it was way harder anyways for me than I pictured in my mind. So if that's you, then don't give up on yourself. And it's normal to, a normal journey if it's difficult for you in the beginning. Okay, you're completely normal. Thank you both so much for sharing.